Have you ever noticed? The more you try to control life, the more it seems to slip through your hands. We grow up believing that we must keep striving, pushing ourselves endlessly to achieve something that makes us worthy of happiness. But the more we chase it, the more exhausted, empty, and detached from ourselves we become. Alan Watts, the philosopher of awakening, called this the paradox of striving. In his talk, Don't Force Anything, he didn't tell us to give up, but rather taught us the art of living in harmony with the natural flow of the universe. When we stop forcing, when we learn to act without effort, life suddenly becomes lighter, more natural, and filled with rhythm. Join me on this journey, where you don't have to fight against life, but simply flow with it. Because sometimes, true strength lies not in control, but in surrender. Wu-Wei, not forcing. Those three seemingly simple words contain one of the deepest truths Alan Watts ever shared. True human strength does not lie in control, but in harmony. With his East-West vision, Alan Watts saw in the Taoist concept of Wu-Wei a profound secret: action without action, doing without striving. Wu means no. Wei means action. But non-action here doesn't mean laziness, passivity, or giving up. It is the state of pure naturalness, when we act not out of fear, not out of desire, not under the pressure to prove ourselves. Watts compared Wu-Wei to the art of the artist or the athlete. A musician no longer counts beats or thinks about each note. He melts into the music. An athlete in a state of flow no longer tries to win. They become one with movement. The moment you try to be natural, you have already lost your naturalness. That is the paradox Watts wanted us to see. The more we try to control, the more we lose the flow. It's like trying to hold water in your hands. The tighter you squeeze, the faster it slips away. Life is the same. When we stop forcing, stop resisting what is, only then do we begin to feel the power of letting go. Wu-Wei doesn't teach us to stand still in the storm, but to know when to set the sail and follow the wind. It is the art of living in tune with the rhythm of the universe, where everything unfolds not by our will, yet always perfectly in its own way. Alan Watts believed that human beings are only truly free when they stop trying to become something other than themselves. And that can only happen when we stop forcing. So, don't force anything is not advice to abandon effort, but an invitation to awaken. Let your actions flow from peace, not fear. Let life unfold like a flower. No one commands it to bloom, yet it opens at the perfect moment. When we understand the principle of Wu-Wei, not forcing, we begin to see another hidden truth beneath it. Not forcing does not mean being passive. Letting go is not the same as giving up. The stillness that Alan Watts spoke of is not stagnation, but a state of acting at the right time, in the right way, in harmony with the rhythm of nature. Watts often used the image of judo to illustrate this. In judo, the winner is not the stronger one, but the one who knows how to use force at the right moment. A judo practitioner does not resist the opponent's energy. They move with it, waiting for the instant the opponent loses balance, then respond effortlessly. That is the spirit of Wu-Wei in action, not confrontation, but transformation. Life is much like an invisible match. Many of us are always throwing punches, always trying to prove, to change, to grasp. But the harder we try, the more weary we become. Those who understand the judo of consciousness do not force life. They observe, feel, wait, and harmonize. Because sometimes, a single small action at the right time is more powerful than 1,000 blind efforts. Alan Watts also compared this to the sailor. A sailor cannot command the wind. He cannot order the ocean to calm itself. But he can know when to raise the sail, when to drop the anchor, and when to let the boat drift in peace. That is the wisdom of Wu-Wei, to act in harmony with the flow rather than against it. Watts once said, "You cannot swim against the current, you can only learn to go with it." To act in awareness means to give your all, yet not cling to the outcome. It is like planting a seed. You nurture it, water it, but you cannot make it sprout any faster. The seed will grow when its time has come. That is the art of living in the spirit of Wu-Wei, acting with the precision of a judo master and the patience of a sailor. Not passive, not forceful, but active in stillness, powerful in gentleness. Because sometimes strength does not lie in doing more, but in knowing when to stop. And when we understand this, life is no longer a struggle, but a graceful dance with the flow of the universe. When we learn to act at the right moment, like the martial artist who knows when to strike, or the sailor who knows when to catch the wind, we begin to touch a deeper layer of Wu-Wei, the realm where every action arises not from willful effort, but from a natural, effortless state of being. And it is here that Alan Watts leads us to another subtle paradox, the difference between true virtue and false virtue. Watts quoted Lao Tzu, "Superior virtue is not conscious of itself as virtue. Therefore, it truly is virtue." A simple sentence, yet it reaches the very root of the matter. Whatever we try to become, we can never truly be. When we try to appear good, appear humble, or appear natural, the very effort destroys the essence of what we seek. True virtue cannot be performed, practiced, or fabricated by deliberate effort. It arises naturally when the mind is no longer controlled by the ego's need to prove itself. Alan Watts believed that the more one tries to be natural, the more artificial one becomes. For the moment we make being natural a goal, we have already separated ourselves from nature. It is like a person trying to fall asleep faster. The more they try, the more awake they become. Naturalness, true virtue, does not come from striving, but from release, from allowing the authentic self to reveal itself. Watts called this the art of being without mind, yet not without heart, when one acts, loves, and helps without needing a reason. A truly virtuous person does not think, "I am doing good." They simply do what is right because it is in their nature. Like a flower that blooms not to be admired, like the wind that blows for no purpose. False virtue, no matter how beautifully it is dressed in words or deeds, always carries a trace of effort because it springs from fear or the desire for recognition. Alan Watts wanted us to see that whenever we try to be, we have already lost being. Wu-Wei cannot be trained as a skill because it is not about movement, but about the state of mind. When the mind does not force, every action becomes light, natural, and pure. And that is true virtue, not born of effort to become, but of the surrender of all effort. When we realize that true virtue cannot be forced, that naturalness appears only when we stop trying to be natural, a new door of awareness opens, the door of not knowing. Alan Watts said that only when we dare to not know do we truly know. For true knowledge does not come from intellect, but from an open-hearted surrender to existence. Watts invites us to return to the state of a child, where everything in life is a miracle. Children carry no preconceptions. They do not try to understand the universe. They simply look, feel, and marvel. They do not fear the dark, because no one has yet taught them that darkness is frightening. They do not feel lost beneath the vast sky. They simply gaze upward in wonder at the immensity of being. But as we grow older, we begin to name the world. We call this the sun, that the sky, this miti, and that you. And with every label, we slowly suffocate the living mystery of what simply is. We no longer see the sky. We only see our concept of the sky. We no longer hear the wind. We only think, ah, that's the wind. Alan Watts called this the trap of knowledge, where humanity trades the wonder of existence for the comfort of certainty in knowing. But ironically, the more we know, the farther we drift from the real experience of living. Like someone who has read hundreds of books about the ocean, but has never stepped into the sea, our minds become flooded with concepts and forget the feeling of life itself. Watts said that to return to the mind of a child does not mean to be ignorant or naive. It is a profound form of wisdom, the courage to let go of the illusion that we already understand. For in that state of not knowing, we return to openness, the state of one who is truly alive, not merely analyzing life. A child needs no philosophy to see that a flower is beautiful. They simply look and smile. And in that moment, that instant of pure perception without explanation, true intelligence is born. Alan Watts wanted us to see that knowledge is not the enemy, but that when we cling to it, we lose touch with life. Therefore, to truly know, we must learn how to not know. We must learn to see the world through clear, innocent eyes, as if beholding it for the very first time. When we dare to not know, as Alan Watts said, we create a space within the mind, a space where awareness becomes transparent and life begins to sound in its true tone. But to truly live in that openness, we must learn the art of letting go. Letting go is not merely an act, it is an act of courage, the willingness to release every concept, every belief, every opinion we once clung to for safety. Watts encouraged his listeners to leave all opinions, philosophies, and religions outside the door as a kind of spiritual experiment. He did not tell us to reject knowledge or deny belief, but only to set them down for a while, so that we may see the world through eyes unconditioned. For it is our labels, opinions, and habitual thoughts that prevent us from seeing truth. We see only the version our minds wish to believe. Watts compared the human mind to water stirred by waves. When the wind of thought blows fiercely, we see only the ripples, never the depths beneath. But when we allow everything to settle, without trying to stop thinking, without forcing or judging, just observing, we begin to see the nature of our consciousness, still, clear, and free. Look at your thoughts as you would at waves crashing upon the rocks, arising and fading, forming and dissolving. Each thought, each emotion, is only a temporary shape of the water, not the ocean itself. Yet we often mistake ourselves for those waves, identifying with anger, with fear, with I am this or I think that, and thus we are swept away. Alan Watts reminded us, red is not red. Soft is not soft. Being is not being. Meaning, do not rush to label the world. Let things simply be, unconfined by words or viewpoints. For when we stop naming, the world ceases to be a concept and becomes a miracle once more. Letting go of thought does not mean destroying thought, but seeing its true nature. When we simply observe rather than analyze, the mind becomes like the vast sky, where clouds pass freely, leaving no trace. And in that state, we are no longer the one who strives to understand, but the one who truly lives. For within that silent, non-judgmental awareness, freedom appears, light as breath, deep as eternity. When we learn to release all opinions and habitual thinking, the mind becomes still, like a lake after the wind. And within that stillness, Alan Watts invites us to take one more step into the pure experience of feeling. For if letting go is to empty the mind, then feeling is to let the heart be full. Watts said this is not a stance against reason or intellect. He was not asking us to live blindly, but to temporarily set aside the ever-analyzing mind and listen with the whole heart. Because there are truths that the more we dissect, the farther we move from their essence. It is like listening to music. If we focus only on the notes, the structure, the rhythm, we miss the most important thing, the melody of emotion. Watts urged us to close our eyes, listen, and be present. To feel the space around us, the breath flowing through the nose, the heartbeat within the chest. No need to understand, to interpret, or compare. For in that moment, when we stop reasoning and simply are here, we touch the most vivid truth of existence. He once said, "When you try to understand life, you stand outside of it. When you feel it, you are within it." That is the difference between the observer of life and the one who is truly living. Modern humans, according to Watts, are trapped in the pathology of thinking, always needing to explain, to label, to assign meaning to everything. But sometimes, it is precisely this hunger for meaning that makes us miss the natural meaning already present in every moment. We don't need to understand a sunset to know it is beautiful. We do not need to analyze laughter to recognize joy. Life does not need to be explained. It only needs to be felt. And when we truly feel, we are no longer separate from the world. There is no longer me and that which is felt, only one continuous flow of being, where everything unfolds in perfect rhythm. Alan Watts wanted us to realize that true wisdom does not come from reasoning, but from experience. Feeling is the shortest path to understanding. So do not try to understand life. Live it. Do not try to make this moment tell you what it means. Simply listen to it, with your full presence. And then, in that silence, you will see. Every answer has always been there, in your very breath. Having journeyed through Wu-Wei, through right action, true virtue, not knowing, letting go, and pure feeling, we begin to see something that seems simple, yet holds the key to freedom. Don't force anything. All our lives, we have tried to control everything, ourselves, others. We want life to go according to plan, people to understand us, the future to turn out as we wish. But the more we try, the more exhausted and lost we become. Alan Watts once said, "When you try to control the river, you lose its music." Life does not need to be controlled. It only needs to be listened to. Don't force anything does not mean giving up or being passive. It is an awakening of the mind, the understanding that this universe has always moved according to a perfect order, and that we are simply part of its flow. Instead of straining against it, relax and move with its rhythm. For when we stop forcing, stop comparing, stop trying to be someone, we begin to see who we truly are. Alan Watts called this the art of living in the rhythm of the present, where every action arises not from fear, but from peace. Just as a musician, immersed in his music, does not try to play beautifully, he simply allows the music to play through him. That is the way of life Watts invites us toward, to act without strain, to love without calculation, to live without control. And then, when we release all striving, everything begins to align on its own. Every door opens at the right moment, every opportunity appears in perfect timing, and we realize Life was never against us. We were simply resisting it. Don't force anything is not some distant philosophy. It is a way of being, a gentle invitation to return to the simple purity of existence. Let everything unfold in its own rhythm. Let yourself flow with the river instead of trying to grasp the water. For only when we stop trying to be natural do we truly become natural.